Okay, and greetings, my friend. Welcome once again to the next episode here, Red Delta Project Podcast, live feed Q&A, where we are simplifying fitness to help you escape the diet and exercise rat race through a fundamental approach to fitness. My name is Matt Schifferly, and this week's episode is sponsored by the entirety of the RDP library, particularly the ones on PDF. All of the books that I've written, including the new quick reads, are all available on the PDF store. Link is down below in the description at a discount. I've even created several bundles that can help you save even more with several of the books that come together with a common theme to them. And my new book, which is soon to be released, is all about adaptive diet and exercise training. And that I finished the rough draft yesterday, and that will be coming out probably in the next week or two. So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be another one of the quick reads, which are super low price. They're $4.99 each, and each one not big enough to be an entire book, but a singular lesson that can radically make a big difference in your health and fitness and your current quality of life as well. So let's talk about change today. This is February 10th when I'm recording this, which means that yesterday was my birthday. And that means I turned another trip around the sun. I'm now officially 46 years old. And I always like to do these little episodes here on the anniversary of like my birth and stuff, because this time of year is usually kind of a bit of a pivotal time for me. It's this time of year is when I usually end up moving to a new location, when I ended up making a lot of changes in like what jobs I did. The Red Delta Project was created around this time of year. It's when I started Taekwondo and a bunch of other hobbies that I've done. This is, to me, kind of like my own personal new year. And looking back, I always like to ruminate on what were some of the big game-changing lessons and things that have changed for me over the past year. And let me tell you, my friend, this past year has been a doozy for me. I don't think I've ever had a 365 and a quarter days event in my life that has tested me more, challenged me more, created more trouble for me than the past year, but at the same time has led to more growth, development, and milestones than this past year. It has been one heck of a doozy. Just to quickly recap, here are some of the things that happened to me over the past year. First and foremost, I moved finally from where I was living in Littleton, which is a suburb about 45 minutes away from Denver here. I always lived out there. And then towards the end of last year, I was kind of like, why am I, or the previous year too, I was like, why am I living in Littleton? Everything I do is in Denver. All my friends are in Denver. All my hobbies, for the most part, except for in the mountains, are in Denver. All my jobs are in Denver and stuff. Why am I not in Denver? So one of the biggest things that I did last year, right around in April, was I moved to Denver. And that was a big game changer because it saved me a ton of time, a ton of money, a ton of energy, because I wasn't having to commute from Littleton to maybe sometimes even 3 times in a day. Other things that helped with last year was I made some very significant financial milestones where I've been continuing to grow RDP. I've been continuing to grow as a coach and a trainer, and I was hitting several financial milestones last year for the first time ever, including finally getting out of personal toxic consumer debt. This is debt that I've carried on my shoulders in one way or another, personal loans, credit cards and stuff, for, well, the better part of a decade now. And last year, I finally accomplished the goal of just paying it all off. It was all gone, all done, completely eliminated. And boy, was that a huge game changer for me personally in my own life, because it got so much that I had several jobs that I was working at a time. And there were jobs I hated to do and things that I didn't like to do. And I would literally go into the job and be like, the only reason why I'm here showing up at this job and doing this is because I've got these credit cards to pay off, or this loan to pay off, that I was just financially irresponsible for so long and stuff. And it really taught me, especially the past several years, the vast importance of just having some degree of financial wherewithal. Not necessarily like becoming financially independent even, but for the longest time, I was always one of these guys who like, the best things in life are free and you don't need to make much money to be happy and other things. And I never took a whole lot of financial responsibility for my own life. And now I realize that was to my great detriment. Most of the beliefs and ideas and stuff that I had about money and my approaches to saving and making money and stuff were very misguided for most of my life. If I could go back in time and tell my younger self just a few simple key lessons, most of it would have been about financial stuff. Because now I'm much more in a better financial scenario and situation, not rich or anything by any means. I'm not making a ton of money, but I'm in much better financial place from this past year, especially. And everything about my life is better. My health is better. My relationships are better. My outlook is better. My stress is better. Every single aspect of my life is better purely because I don't have that debt and I'm making more money. Full stop. And that has been one of the biggest lessons that I learned that I was wrong about for so many years, is that yes, all of that stuff on the financial spectrum is incredibly important. And it was to my great detriment that I did not take that more seriously. Other things that I did on the fitness perspective that really helped me this year was the past year, I finally was able to finish and publish and get out my latest book, Be Fit and Live Free. This is a book that I have attempted to write many times over the past several years. This is basically my manifesto, my opus that I have been compiling, writing, and researching for the past 10 years. Basically, since Red Delta Project started, it's been accumulating into this, which is essentially how fitness fundamentally works. Because when I started my coaching career over 2 decades ago, one of the things that really hit hard that I had to learn over the first few years was that ultimately we are not addressing how fitness actually works. We keep telling ourselves, it's like, oh, of course we know how it works. You do the right program, you build muscle. You do the right diet, you lose weight. You follow the right formula and you get great results. But when you get into the trenches as a coach, when you spend 10, 12, 13, 14 hours a day in big gyms, seeing literally thousands of people all around you working out, you become more aware that how we think fitness works and what's actually happening in the real world are drastically misaligned. And so I've really dedicated most of my time and research in the Red Delta Project trying to figure out, how does fitness actually work? Why is it that one person can follow a program and get great results, and another person can do the exact same thing and get completely the opposite effect? Like, this guy did the program and he built muscle and got stronger. This guy over here did the exact same thing and he got weaker and smaller. How does that even happen, right? How is it that you can take supposedly effective programming to 100 people and only 2 people out of those 100 are going to get great results? And yet in our fitness culture, we have huge survivorship bias, and we'll take those 2 people and think, see, this is what the program did, is all these great results. And 98% of the people didn't get great results. Why is this happening? So it was a huge undertaking for me. And I attempted to write that book many times over the past several years, never being able to do it. And one of the things that I've learned about myself is if I'm trying to write a book and I'm struggling to write it, that means I don't understand it well enough yet. I haven't discovered or researched enough, because when you understand how something actually works, it's really easy to teach it. It's really easy to convey the information in a book or a video or a podcast. So when you're struggling, like, I can't quite get it out. I get writer's block, and it's just, no, it just simply means you're not ready yet, Matt. It just means you don't understand it well enough. So last year I was able to finally compile everything together, put all the pieces together, and put out that book, which was basically like 10 years in the making. Other little things that I did that were kind of a milestone for me is I tested for and I made my 6th degree black belt. I competed in Taekwondo Nationals. That was quite the big thing for me, especially since I was out of formal training for a considerable period of time after moving back to Denver here. And also on personal levels and stuff, I got much more social. I got a lot out of my own personal comfort level. Over the past year, I've recognized that one of the things that I've long struggled with personally, that I can finally put a label to, is that I've long dealt with a lot of social anxieties. Meeting people, talking to people. For the first time in literally almost 15 years, I got back into going out into the dating game a little bit. Not on like dating apps or anything like that, just meeting people through friends and stuff like that. And that was a big milestone for me, and recognizing that this was something I needed to overcome. And while it's been both the source of a lot of anxiety for me, it's also been a lot of getting outside my comfort zone and personal growth. So it's been a hell of a year. I've grown a lot over the past year. I've accomplished a lot over the past year. I've also had a lot of challenges and personal hangups over the past year. I've had a lot, and I mean a lot, of very crippling anxiety over a lot of things, to the point where it's just really handicapping a lot of things that I did. It's handicapped my work and my workouts. And I was talking one time with a friend the other day, and I was like, I don't understand why right now, like, everything feels so incredibly hard. Like, the smallest little workout feels almost impossible for me to do. Being able to just point the camera at me and do a 2-minute YouTube video felt impossible. Very, very hard to do. I remember there was a time when this stuff felt easy to do. Why is it so hard? And my friend, she's very, very good at psychoanalysis and stuff. That's what she's trained in. She's like, because right now, at that period, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, personal anxiety, to the point where it was just crippling my thoughts and emotions on a daily basis. She's like, you've got so much energy going towards dealing with this anxiety. Of course, anything else that involves any degree of effort and work is going to be monumentally hard. She's like, it's no different than if you were sick, right? If you get sick and you have a cold, your body is using so much energy for your immune system to fight the cold. That's why you're tired and run down, because climbing a flight of stairs or doing 10 push-ups when you're sick feels so incredibly hard, because you've got all that energy going towards other things. But when you're not battling illness and you're eating well and you're sleeping well and your energy level's up, then all of a sudden a workout that's 10 times as difficult on paper feels much easier. And it's because you just have more of that energy to use. And I had that really, really nailed things on me. I have one client that I work with in particular, and her life is very stressful. She has a very stressful job. She's traveling a whole heck of a lot. She has a lot of challenge with sleeping well and eating well and all this sorts of things. So a lot of times when I would see her for workouts, she'd be like, why is this so hard? This workout is so hard. I'm really struggling today. I'm really struggling. And then during the holidays, she had a period where she was off of work. She wasn't traveling. She was getting plenty of sleep. She was getting plenty of good food. She was around people who were making her feel good and bolstering her up, not stressing her out and stuff. And then she was coming to her workouts. She was like, this workout feels so much easier. Like, oh my gosh, like, she's breaking PRs left and right. She's like, why is this so much easier? It's like, because you have the energy for it. It's that simple. Basic, like I was just saying, a lot of things in my own personal life became a lot better and easier to handle purely because my financial situation improved. I just had the money. When my car needed a lot of work done over the past fall, I was like, yeah, okay, fix the car. And you're like, well, this is the quote and this is the estimate and this is it, and it's going to cost all this money. And I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's a lot of money, but I can do it. Go for it. I didn't have to like, okay, what credit cards am I going to move around and how am I going to find the money? And maybe I can, take out a loan for this and stuff. I wasn't worried about it. I was like, yeah, I simply have more money and I'm not stressing out about fixing my car. It's the exact same thing in fitness. Is if you just have more energy, everything is a hell of a lot easier. Building muscle is easier. Losing weight is easier. Getting your workouts in is easier. Everything is easier if you just have more energy. Full stop. And that's one of the biggest lessons is if you are struggling with your energy levels, everything, even the smallest things, are just going to be harder. And there's nothing that's going to change that until you get your energy levels back up. So that's why I'm always telling people, if you want to make things better, if you want to have a better chance of getting the results you want, look to your energy level. Anything that's going to improve your energy level is going to make things easier. Now, of course, we want to do this holistically. I'm not talking about like, go and take huge amounts of caffeine and live off caffeine pills and even resort to other drugs and stuff because that's an artificial temporary solution. I'm talking about elevating your overall energy level on a much more chronic basis. Get plenty of sleep, plenty of wholesome nutrition, supporting nutrition. Do workouts that aren't beating you into the ground and punishing your body like crazy. Basically, look to your energy levels, the canary in the coal mine of if you can do things to safeguard and improve and promote your energy levels, everything in your health and your life and your lifestyle is going to be a lot easier. So that's big game changer number one. Let's get to some of these questions here. Milana is saying, hey, Matt, what do you think about using machines in the gym? Does that make you unathletic? Is it worth than calisthenics or free weights? Well, it depends, of course, on the goal and what you're trying to achieve. But to a large degree, again, fundamentally, it probably doesn't matter very much. Now, again, that's something that I was wrong about for many years myself. I used to be a serious free weight zealot. I used to be all about like, oh, free weights are the best for building muscle and athleticism and stuff. And only idiots are going to use machines, and machines are dumb, and don't use them because it means you're lazy. Only real athletes will use free weights, and free weights are best. I championed that for years. But as I started to understand more of how fitness fundamentally works and how it actually works, I realized, no, it really doesn't matter very much. In fact, there are some huge advantages to using machines over free weights and calisthenics. In fact, many people are probably better off using machines if they have access to them. There's pros and cons to everything, but machines are fantastic because remember, fundamentally, if we just looking at it from a simple standpoint of, I just want to build bigger, stronger muscles, all you need to do is put that muscle against resistance. It doesn't really matter where the resistance is coming from. It could be from a machine or free weights or calisthenics or bands, or I mean, right now in my apartment here, I've got 3 machines that are electronic resistance. You know, they're not weights. They're the new these electronic resistance machines that use motors in them and stuff. They're cool. They're really fun to play with. Does it really matter? No. But remember, though, it does matter if it matters to you. For the most part, I get on weight machines and I'm like, ugh, this doesn't feel so good in my muscles. I love calisthenics because for some reason, I'm not sure why, my muscles just take to calisthenics. I do pull-ups. I'm like, whoa, I feel this so awesome in my back. It feels amazing on my joints. And I go on most machines and I'm like, this didn't feel so good in my joints. I'm not really feeling this in the muscles I want to work. Granted, that's largely me, but that's so what? You know, but if you got on that lat pull down machine, for example, and you're like, I don't know why, but boy, this sets my lats on fire. Well, then go with that. Use the methods that align for you, my friend. There's no best. There's no, this is the best way to do things. It's always going to come down to what is best for you personally, your resources, your preferences, your abilities. That's what you should be using for. And it's probably going to involve a combination of things anyway. Excuse me, still battling that chest cold. Christina is coming on. You seem very calm, speak very well. Glad you are getting over the anxiety. Thank you very much. You know, a lot of it's too just faking it as well. And to be honest with you, you know, it's I can cloud over it a lot when I'm making the podcasts and videos and stuff like that. And as soon as I turn off the switch, boom, everything would collapse back on me now. But that goes along with lesson number 2. Is again researching and getting the information for this book here. I became much more aware of the fundamental emotional nature that is us human beings, and that for a large degree, we humans, our lives and our decisions and our health and our fitness and all these other things is going to be based much more on our emotional state than anything else. And this is one of those definite, like, peer behind the curtain kind of things that happened to me over the past year, is recognizing just how big an influence our emotional state is. Because like I was saying, I was having this chronic, crippling anxiety sometimes over several things. And it didn't matter what I learned. It didn't matter what a friend would tell me. You know, it didn't matter what information I put in my head. What mattered was the subconscious beliefs that I was carrying around that was causing a lot of this anxiety, and it still does. I'm still dealing with it. But fundamentally, we are human beings and we are emotional creatures, not logical. And I've said this many times and I still stand by it, is that I don't care what you learn logically when it comes to diet and exercise. You could know everything about nutrition and weight loss and how to have a perfect diet and have books, shelves of books on knowing everything there is to know about healthy eating and nutrition. But if a coworker brings in a big box of glazed donuts that morning, how you feel on an emotional level is going to determine whether or not you're eating those donuts. We are more of a product of our emotional state than anything else. And if we learn something and it changes us, it's more likely that the information is going to change our lives, not because we learned it, but because of how that information makes us feel. And this is going down a hell of a rabbit hole for me. It's going to be leading to all sorts of new products and information and stuff in the coming year and so forth. But the bottom line is that when it comes to diet, when it comes to exercise, how you feel about these things and how it makes you feel is quite possibly much more important than any of the quote logical science behind it. Okay, I'm going to science my way to bigger muscles and stuff. I will take someone who has a good emotional orientation to working out over someone with 5 exercise PhDs any day of the week. Because your behaviors, your intensities, your choices, your beliefs, all of your actions, behaviors, and outcomes are going to be determined far more by how you feel than what you know. And that this has to go against a little bit of the messages that are in our fitness culture and the world at large, because there seems to be this idea in our fitness culture, especially, that's almost anti-emotion. It's like, science doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't matter how you feel. This is what the data says and stuff. Yes, I know it to a degree. Yeah, you're right. Like, it doesn't matter if you're standing in the rain and you're like, but I feel like it's a sunny day. It doesn't matter. You're still getting wet. To that degree, I understand. But the bottom line is you're going to be having your actions determined by your feelings more than anything else, which means, and this is the new thing that I'm starting to learn, is that we need, if we want to condition our body, we want to become stronger, we need to become more resilient, we want to lose weight and stuff like that. We also need to emotionally condition ourselves. We need to condition our emotional subconscious state just like we condition our body. And now my next area of interest is, well, how do you do that? Easier said than done there. It's like, okay, great. But like a lot of things, the lesson is boils down to reps, boils down to repeat exposure of an idea. One of the things that I observed that really started to help me about the chronic anxiety and the negative emotional states that I was finding myself in, particularly towards the end of the year, it's simply because what was I habitually thinking? What was I habitually doing? We understand that our muscles are the product of our habitual movement patterns. If I'm habitually doing push-ups, I'm going to have a stronger chest, shoulders, and triceps because I'm habitually doing push-ups. If I'm habitually just laying on the couch and not doing anything, then I'm going to get worse results. It's the same thing with our emotional and mental conditioning. What are the thoughts? What are the feelings that we are subjecting ourselves to? And like a lot of people, when it comes to their physical conditioning, if you're not paying attention to it and you're not proactively trying to condition it, then it's going to be ending up wherever it ends up, which is probably not in a good place, because there are forces out there that do understand they can condition you on an emotional level. I'm talking about marketing and all sorts of manipulative ideas. Social media is all about that. And so the best defense we have against that is to recognize we can proactively condition our mental and emotional state. And then we need to be very purposeful in what kind of repetitions are you subjecting yourself to. If you are subjecting yourselves to negative emotional thought patterns all the time of, oh man, I'm not very smart and I'm slow and I'm tight and I'm stiff and I suck at everything, guess how you're going to feel about things eventually. But if the opposite goes, and I'm not saying you stand in front of a mirror and do affirmations and stuff, it's just what are the thoughts and the emotional habits you have? And can you start to turn things around? And again, like physical conditioning, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard at first. And it's going to take a long time for things to start to turn around. You can start to try positive thinking for a week, and that's not going to do a whole lot. Just as doing push-ups for a week isn't going to do a whole heck of a lot. It's not enough time. But that's the big lesson that I've been especially learning over the past couple of months, which I think can make a massive change in our health and our fitness and lifestyle in general. Speaking of which, let's get to some more questions. It's always good to talk to you folks. Young Zhang, hope I'm pronouncing that right, my friend, says, well done, Matt, evolving regardless of issues in life. Absolutely, my friend. We are here to grow and develop and evolve throughout our lives. And, I used to be someone who was very much about a static approach. I was always doing the same habits, hanging out with the same people, believing the same things for years and years and years. And especially over the past 2 years, I've really recognized like, okay, this isn't going to be good for me. This is not going to let me go where I want to go. I need to be proactive in change. There's a book I read fairly recently was talking about change and how the author was observing that. Isn't it crazy how we all know change is coming, yet so many of us get rocked and knocked off our keister when it does happen, like we didn't see it coming, right? And one of the things that I've mentioned several times is that, if we fight change, that's when we get a lot of stress, pain, and anxiety. If we accept change, that's when we have more peace and tranquility. And if we create change, that's where we have more power. And that's what I'm kind of focusing on. It's like, okay, as I observe in fitness, a fundamental approach as I talk about this, that diet and exercise doesn't do anything unique or special. It doesn't make anything happen. The processes that are governing your health and fitness are already on autopilot and they're already happening 24/7. When we engage in diet and exercise habits, all we're doing is we're directing where that change is going. You're not going to create change in your body because change is already happening. Our diet and our exercise habits and our meditation and our ability to mentally and emotionally condition ourselves doesn't do anything. All it does is directs the process that's already happening. And that is empowering. It's like, I don't want to go in that direction. I'm going that way instead, kind of thing. But we're going somewhere, is the point. Your body, your mind, your emotional state, your beliefs, you're going to change and evolve somewhere. And if you're not proactively telling yourself where you want to go, chances are you're going to end up where other people want you to end up. And a lot of times that may not be in your best interests. Sometimes it would be. People who love you, friends, family, coaches, mentors, they can lead you in a good direction. But if you take more proactive power over what your body is doing, over your habits, over your thoughts, and how you're conditioning your emotional state to even a little bit, you're going to have more power over what your physical, mental, emotional, and the state of your life will be. And that's certainly something that's come to full fruition over the past year or so. Adam's coming on saying, do you think explosive movements are healthy over time, or are they're excessive micro traumas that build up and eventually cause injury? Like kettlebell swings, jump snatches, etc. No, if anything, I would say the explosive stuff is extremely good because typically with age, I'm getting older myself, generally the thing that we start to lose as we get older is that pop, that power, that drive. I used to work at a gym that had dedicated fitness classes. We didn't teach clients what we wanted to do. There was a prime directive of, okay, this is the workout we're working on today. And we had an entire day of the week, I think it was Thursdays, that was dedicated towards power and explosiveness. And the whole idea with the gym was, train like an athlete and that sort of thing. Because a lot of us, we have power and explosiveness when we play sports when we're younger and stuff. But when we get older, we lose that spring in our step, so to speak. And so being able to develop and maintain that power is definitely a good thing. Now, like any other form of training, yes, it can lead to injury. Yes, it can be detrimental, but it's more in the programming and the application of it. Okay? And you don't need a whole lot to be able to do explosive stuff. Dude, if you got a kettlebell laying around, I'm like, yeah, do 20 kettlebell swings a few times a week. That can do wonders for you. It doesn't need to be a lot. A lot of times in our fitness culture, we use explosive movements as a form of cardio. Okay, do 50 box jumps. Okay, then do a 200 kettlebell swings and stuff. We got to jack up the heart rate. Got to metcon this stuff. No, most of the time when it comes to real, true, effective, explosive movement, you're actually going the opposite direction. in Explosive Calisthenics, aka Convict Conditioning 3, Paul Wade, that's a whole book about using calisthenics for explosive pop and power. And his whole approach was keep the numbers low, like 3 reps. If you've got an explosive movement, do 3 reps or 6 or 9 typically. Don't do 50 kind of thing. Because if you're trying to develop a lot of power, that's the same thing fundamentally as generating a lot of tension, which means you don't want to have a lot of volume. You want the volume to be small. So generally when it comes to explosive stuff, keep the volume low, keep the fatigue fairly low, and you only need a few movements too. Like let's say, a kettlebell swing, some jump lunges, and maybe some sort of like punching, against a heavy bag or something. It doesn't take a whole lot to maintain that power, which is why it's such a sad thing to see when people lose that power. Is it doesn't take a whole lot. Back when, again, in that gym, we had an entire workout developing power and strength and or explosiveness, and I always looked at it like we don't need a whole workout of this. We just need like a couple movements throughout the week, and that's gonna cover us. So it doesn't take much, but yeah, definitely a good thing to maintain that power and explosiveness. Highly endorse that. Lorraine saying, Matt, any tips for conditioning knees for taking drops, jumps for parkour? Nothing wrong with my knees, but keep being older than your average parkour beginner, I like to keep them that way. Yeah, smart man, smart. Lou, you definitely good. So part of the thing about knees, and speaking as a guy who's basically had knee problems my entire life, my knees were absolutely destroyed before I was 15, and now they're bulletproof, is that a lot of it is not the knees themselves. I mean, sure, if you've got an ACL or a meniscus tear or something, then yeah, that is an actual knee problem. But most of the time, stress in the knees means other muscles throughout your squat chain are not doing their job. And 9 times out of 10, that's your hips, that's your ass, that's your glutes and your hamstrings. When you are running, when you're jumping, when you're landing and stuff, your hips are like the shock absorbers for your knees. So make sure that you're developing plenty of glute and hamstring activation and good explosiveness. So jump lunges, jump squats, as I was talking about, kettlebell swings, get your bridges in, your hip bridges, that sort of stuff. Basically, you don't want to feel things in your knees. You want to make sure that you're basically using all of your legs to absorb that force and power when you're doing your parkour. Okay, other questions here. J Kalanier is saying, hey, Matt, what's your favorite non-exercise related ways to manage stress? Very good question. And that was one of the things that I learned, especially over the past month when, I'm looking at all this anxiety. I'm like, oh, what do I do for it? My friends were like, well, what do you do for fun? What do you do to de-stress and decompress and stuff? And I was like, well, I go skiing, I go bike riding, I go, and they're like, no. Like, seriously, like, that's not exercise related. That's not work related. Everything about you right now is exercise and work. Like, what do you do? And I was like, and they're like, that's a problem. Like, when you've got one little area that you can use to manage stress, you've got a small toolbox there. You need something else. So I realized then it's like, I need other avenues to de-stress. I need other things that I can do. And so I've been looking into that. One thing that I particularly like to do is I've always been a big fan of darts. I love to throw darts. It's a very like a Zen-like thing for me. When you get that nice release and the dart just sails right to where you want to go. It's a very meditative thing for me to throw darts. So I have a very, fancy dart set up here. And I realized then it's like, God, I haven't thrown darts in months. I was like, well, you need to do that more often. And we actually have a very kind of a posh dart bar here. It's a social club here in Denver. It's called the Denver Flight Club. It's a really, really high-end place where you can go and play darts and get really cool food and cocktails and things like that. So last night for my birthday, my friend was like, she was like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to go to Flight Club. I want to go there and, eat and drink and just relax and just stress of the day gone. And that's what we did. And that was fantastic. That's exactly what I needed. So darts for now is pretty much one of the things that I like to do. Oh, I want to piggyback on this. Michael Dropweight Dead, I say mindset is everything. I heard one of these lifestyle gurus one time, Robin Sharma, said it's not so much mindset as it is heart set. Heart set. What is the emotional state? And I think that's a very important distinction, because sometimes we think of mindset as like, what do we know, and that we can learn our way to it. And one of the things that I struggled with this anxiety, because one of the main sources of this anxiety, funny enough, was a relationship that I was in last year, and I was constantly lamenting to my one of my best friends. I was like, I don't understand, why am I having so much trouble with this? Like, I didn't really like her. She wasn't really my type. We don't have a lot of alignment with lifestyle. Like, why am I so anxious about running into her at a party or something? And she's like, well, the heart wants what it wants and everything. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't make sense, kind of thing. And it's because I was trying to think my way out of it. I was trying to logic my way. It's like, okay, let me write down like all these ways we're not compatible and all these things I didn't like about when we'd hang out and stuff. I'm like, no, you can't logic this stuff. It's how you feel about things. And you can learn everything and know the information, but if the information and the stuff you're doing about what is in your head doesn't change how you feel, it doesn't do anything. It's not going to do anything. And one of the things that I've definitely taken home over the past year is that if you're not changing how you feel about things, it doesn't really matter what you learn so much. Like, if you hate working out and you hate doing push-ups and you hate exerting yourself and you have this deep-seated emotional dislike and distrust about trying to get in shape, I could give you every piece of information there is on the internet about how to effectively get a workout in. It's not going to matter at all. But at the same time, if you came to me and you're like, dude, I love working out. I love how it makes me feel. I love the, push-ups, and you could barely know a polypeptide from a carbohydrate or whatever. It won't matter. Like, you're just like, yeah, I just rode my bike 80 miles today. Like, do you know that's not proper program? So what? The guy's got enough emotional fuel to ride 80 miles. That's going to make a big difference in whatever they're trying to accomplish. So, heart set, my friends, that's one of the most important things about our health and fitness. And Michael, you're a great example of this. Your philosophy of train safe and live free and not only helped me lose 140 pounds, but also helped me keep that weight off for a decade now. Now, if you look at Michael's stuff, he's got books out there, he's got great stuff on Instagram and things like that. You'll recognize that Michael went through his massive transformation, losing all that weight and stuff, because he changed how he felt about what he was doing. He changed how he felt about food. He changed how he felt about himself. And that's what did it. He didn't learn anything so much. I mean, he changed how things say. It was like, okay, how do I do a better push-up? Oh, wait, what are these things? Okay, these are bands. How do I do the exercises? That came secondary. That was more superficial. But he changed his heart set, his emotional orientation. And then from there, everything changed very quickly for him. Hey, Joseph. Hello, Matt. Last year and a half, I had hard time about having hip surgery. It would disrupt my life and I would not be able to work out. Yeah, these things are really, really difficult because they're changing how you feel, my friend. But now I did the surgery 3.5 months. All that is in the past, but still have little mixed emotions. Sure, of course. That's no small thing, my friend. That's a big deal. I recognize myself, not nearly to your degree, but if I get sick, my emotional state changes very much. It's the old joke about how, guys get a cold and we feel like, oh, I'm dying, and we turn into, drama queens and everything. I'm totally like that. I get very grumpy. I get very depressed and everything if I've got some sort of just a cold or not feeling my best and things like that. But yeah, that's going to have an impact. It's going to be a very disruptive thing to your emotional state. So, one of the things that I've learned, another big takeaway, is that diversification is very key in resilience. When you have all your eggs in one basket about your emotional state or your physical state, like, okay, what do you do to feel good? And you're like, oh, yeah, I watch TV, or I play video games, or I talk to this one friend. That always makes me feel good. It's like, okay, great. But when that's all you've got, what do you do when that's no longer able to serve you? You're pretty much up a creek. But when you have multiple things that you can do and you have a diverse approach to your diet and your exercise and what you can do to support your habits and good health, then things can come and go, things can falter and stuff, and you're still good. And that's why I'm always talking about a multi influential approach in fitness in my latest book. When you put all of your hopes and dreams of your success and your results on one thing, like, okay, I'm going to lose weight. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to cut out sugar. Okay. Good place to start, maybe, especially if you're eating a lot of processed foods and a lot of sugar. But what else? Oh, that's my plan. It's like, well, okay. So basically, if you eat a stack of Oreos, you're screwed because that's the one game plan you got. And you're basically kicking that one single leg out from underneath you. Plus there's a lot more to everything that we're looking for than that one thing. There's a lot more to building muscle and strength than how much weight is on the bar. There's a lot more to weight loss than diet. There's a lot more to diet than just sugar. So when we focus on one singular thing, we're not only setting ourselves up for basically being extremely frail and fragile, because it's not going to take hardly anything for us to get disruptive, but it also means that we're greatly limiting our potential results. So, for example, I was literally just reading that book on change. There was a guy who was a speed skating champion, and he won gold medals and stuff. But one of the things that was remarkable about him is that he talked about in like his training manifesto is like, oh yeah, well, on the weekends, on rest days, I'd go out with friends. I'd drink beer. I'd eat pizza. I'd eat junk food. I would build my life outside of being a speed skater because there's more to life than speed skating, and he recognized that. So he learned other traits. He learned other things that he could do. So when his career was over, he's like, okay, I just transition. I do these other things. Versus some athletes out there, especially at that Olympic level, they're like, I'm a speed skater. That's all I do. That's all I care about. Everything is about speed skating. Every relationship I have is about speed skating. All my habits are about getting faster on the skates. So then when that ended, they get really depressed because they don't know who they are outside of their sport. But he was like, oh yeah, I've volunteered for these organizations. I've got these other friends who have nothing to do with sports and everything. So when speed skating was done for him, he was like, I've still got this full life I can get into. And it's the same thing in our own perceptions and our self-worth. Okay, you've got hip surgery. Yeah, you can't squat anymore for a while. Your legs are going to be weaker. Your body's going to be weaker, but you're a hell of a lot more, Joseph, than the condition of your body. But a lot of times in fitness, people will put all of their emotional wherewithal and their self worth in the state of their body. And they're like, oh, I live and die by the scale. Where if they feel like they're healthy and they're fit and they've got shredded abs and stuff, then they feel like they're, good, strong, worthwhile, self resilient, self esteem. But that scale goes up 5 pounds because they overindulged over a weekend. Suddenly they're feeling like, oh, I'm a worthless piece of crap. I have no value. No one will ever love me. I'm worthless and everything, because they put so much of their own worth in that one thing versus someone who's like, I've got a lot of great qualities, including I'm a fairly fit dude. And oh man, I'm a little softer in the middle after the holidays, and my pull-ups are a little bit off right now. I can't quite get as much as before. Oh, that kind of sucks, but oh well, I got 100 other great things that are going great for me. And that's the power of the diversification. You've got a lot going for you, but when you put all of your attention and your heart set on one thing, you become extremely vulnerable to all of those emotional setbacks. Following up, he says, now I'm back working out and feeling better. I'm doing squats and lunges. Yep, I saw the video of you doing that the other day. Congrats. For my legs, PT told me that is good for me, hip, and I like doing them. Congrats, man. Fantastic. Good. And that's one of the things that shows your emotional resilience too, Joseph, is that a lot of people have those setbacks and they let it hold them back forever. They're not getting back on the horse. They're not getting back into it. And you are, which shows just how strong you are inside. Strength radiates out. You see someone with a lot of strength and power, not just physically, but emotionally. You can see these people a mile away. They're in a social setting, or they're, at a conference and somebody, heckles them or, yells at them and they're like, you're an idiot. And it doesn't even faze them. Very strong emotional orientation. And I could tell from your journey that you've been sharing with me, thank you very much, that you are just such an individual. So congrats. Keep fostering that. Keep building that up. Philip Nagy is saying, hey, Matt, what do you think about your Veterano Plus program now 8 years later? I'm trying it lately to combine daily strength workout and skill micro workout. Fantastic. Excuse me, I sip my tea. So, revisit the episode I did last week, Philip, where I'm doing a set a day approach, where I took handstands and bridges, two of the exercises I've long struggled with, and I'm practicing them every day, typically one set of some sort every single day. And it's been going fantastic. It's been going great. In fact, in many ways, I've been doing that with all the other tension chains. I've been doing a set a day of squats, set a day of push-ups, set a day of pull-ups and stuff like that. And it, funny enough, has been reminding me of the Veterano Plus. And now, I remade it into the CC Plus to include all of the other programs in combat conditioning. That was the idea behind it, is you practice this big six on a daily basis, and you're undulating and you're modulating when you're really pushing the intensity versus up and down. So sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder based on what your body can do. And it's almost like I'm rediscovering that program. And your question is very well timed, because now I'm like, gosh, I really was onto something with that. If anything, I'm rediscovering just how valuable and potent it is. It very well may lead to another quick read. I'm already starting to think of the outline and stuff. It's like, why is daily training going to be effective? Why is it so potent? Why can it be so good for more than just the body? Why does it help us with the softer qualities of fitness, the mobility, the control, the stability, all these other sorts of things? So, if anything, I've become more reinforced on just how powerful and potent that program really is. And I probably didn't really understand how great it could be back when I wrote that. God, that was like 10, 15 years ago that I wrote that. Congratulations on yourself if you're still using it. Holy smokes. Hey, Larry. It's good to talk to you, my friend. Saying, what is your opinion on deficit push-ups, where you use dumbbells, P-bars, push-up bars, chairs below your hands, getting the stretch on your pecs? Very good question. So I'm generally, in my world, I'm much more of a fan of, like, if you can get more range is better. Full stop. If you've got a way to get more range of motion, you're going to be better off. But and there's a couple of buts here. First off, it's not range of motion, it's range of tension. Range of tension. So, for example, if you're doing push-ups on suspension straps or gymnastic rings, right? And you're coming down, you're coming down, you're coming down, and then you can get more range, but you have to do it by relaxing the muscles into that bottom position. It's not doing you much more good, because you're getting the range, which can be a good stretch, but the whole point of physical conditioning is tension in the muscles. The same thing with pull-ups. Like, you're coming down, coming down, coming down, and then you lose it and you could do like a dead hang. People are like, it's unsafe, it's bad for the joints and stuff. I'm not saying that sort of thing. It's just no tension, no benefit. So make sure that if you're getting deeper, which I'm a huge fan of, I love getting deeper, make sure you're getting deeper while maintaining tension, which is hard because it's always more difficult. And a lot of people really struggle with maintaining tension in the muscle in an elongated position. It's just harder to do it. So that's one of the biggest benefits of getting bigger range of motion, is not developing the range of motion, it's developing range of tension. Range of tension, being able to have that control improves resiliency, makes the exercise feel a lot better. It also makes the exercise harder, which I'm always a big fan of. Anything that means you can't do as many reps or you can't use as much weight, this is probably a step forward in my book, because I'm all about that technical progression. The other thing too, though, about push-ups that you mentioned specifically, is that a lot of times it's not the deficit that's actually causing that stretch. It's not the fact that you're on P-bars or rings or anything like that. What's actually finally happening, most people, when they're like, because I've got several videos about how I don't like push-up handles, and people are like, they're great, they give you a stretch. It's not the handles, because if you watch a lot of people, when they do push-ups on P-bars and stuff, they're actually not going deeper than their hands. But what is actually happening is their shoulders are finally retracting and depressing, and where the stretch is coming from, which means you don't need the handles and stuff. You can get that same stretch on the floor much of the time. But it's the shoulder blade movement that's causing it. Because a lot of times when people do push-ups, they do the dreaded push-up hunch. Very, very common, where you do the push-up and the shoulders elevate and protract forward. And that's why you got it in the shoulders. That's why you got nothing in the chest. That's why you got wrist pain. That's what everything you don't want from push-ups is coming from that hunch. So a lot of times when people do, quote, deficit push-ups, that finally forces their shoulders down and back, and they're like, no, I got that stretch. And it's like, it's nothing to do with the bars or the fact that you can actually go deeper. It's the fact that your shoulders are finally getting back. So practice your push-ups on the floor just to make sure you're getting this. Where I tell people all the time, start push-ups on the floor, don't start at the top, and pull your shoulders down and back as far away from your ears as possible and as far away from the floor as you can get. And that's where you want your shoulders to be, in the bottom of a push-up position. And then you're going to get that big range of tension in your chest, in your shoulders, in your back. And it makes things feel amazing, and it increases your resiliency and stuff. So that's where you're getting the value from it. And granted, yeah, it's easier to learn with deficit. That's why sometimes I'll have people do push-ups on gymnastics rings at Capra, where I'm like, okay, this is going to force your shoulders back, but that's the benefit of it. It's the shoulder movement, not necessarily the actual deficit. Just Bella saying, hey, Matt, I'm working on my inverted row, having troubles engaging my back muscles. Watch your recent videos on rows. I try that. I feel a little more engagement in the back. Very good. Yeah, that's a problem I had for many years myself, usually accompanied with a lot of popping and snapping to my shoulders. So it's the same thing with rows. With push-ups and rows, we have the same shoulder motion. Arms are straight out in front. We have the shoulders elevated and protracted. I know I'm exaggerating this, but this is what we want. And then we're pulling down and back, and then up and forward, down and back. It's easier to learn if you use relatively low levels of resistance there, Joseph. So go with really like a shallow angle on your rows and get that motion down, and then you can carry it over to higher levels of resistance. Makes a big difference in that lat engagement. Best of luck with it. But Philip's coming back on saying, if the daily workout has value, isn't it still, contrary to Mike Metzer, one very hard workout for each muscle group, like the quote, little blows won't let the dynamite explode? Is it contrary at all? Very good question. So a couple of things. With the daily workout, it's not a static approach where I'm like, yeah, I do one set a day and that's the entire way I'm working out. No, I'm still going out some days and I'm like, I'm feeling great. I want to really just blast the mother living hell out of my chest. Go for it then. Good. This also allows you to do big, heavy, hard workouts too. And then the next day I'm like, okay, I'm really tired. I'm really sore. I'm literally just going to do some light, push-ups just to get the movement done and stuff. So you're still undulating the intensity to a very large degree. Second of all, you're not dynamite, okay? You don't need that intensity, because remember that what we're looking at, again, I talk about this in my book, that the reason why fitness works is because there are fundamental processes that are made up of two halves, yin and yang, or plus or minus or whatever, that are always going. And the entire reason why fitness works is because we're influencing the speed at which those two things happen. So if you take Mike Metzer's approach versus the daily workout approach, fundamentally, they're actually doing the same thing, which means you're going to get the same result. You're just going about it at different speeds. It's kind of like saying, all right, if I were to eat 3,000 calories a day, what if I ate it all in one meal or spread out throughout the day? It's still the same rate of caloric consumption, so your weight's going to have the same impact either way. Doesn't matter. So that's why, again, it matters more about what matters most to you, what's best for you. You could have an affinity for one versus the other, but as long as you're making the same thing happen on the fundamental level, which is where fitness actually works, then no, it doesn't matter which way you go about doing it. You can have your diet and your workout programming and your diet that you're following and everything. You could change things 100 million gazillion different ways, seemingly in complete opposite directions. High volume, low volume, high carb, low carb, eating 8 meals a day, intermittent fasting and stuff. There's all this stuff out there in our fitness culture that seems very different on the superficial level. But when you get down to the fundamental level, which is really what's actually important for what's happening, it's the same thing. And as long as you've got that going on, you're going to get the same results either way. So yeah, basically Mike and I were doing the same thing. We're just going about it different ways superficially. James Woods, it's good to talk to you. Hey, Matt, do shoulders retract during pull-ups or do they just depress and elevate? Happy belated birthday. Thank you. Yeah, there is a little bit of retraction. In my experience, a lot of times people will protract shoulders more with pull-ups, which is why they turn off their back and use it more as an arm thing, which is why they've got pain in their elbows and it's all in the arms and they barely feel it in the back. Yes, you want retraction. The cue I always give people when doing pull-ups over at Capra is keep your shoulders behind your ears when you're doing that sort of thing. When you hang, you can come forward a little bit if you like. And sometimes it's not so much about going forward, but it helps you to pull back, especially towards the top. But yeah, you want that retraction. It's primarily elevation and depression, as well as internal and external rotation of the shoulder blades. But yeah, a little bit of retraction, definitely a good idea to keep that in the back of your mind. Michael's following up saying, "Hey, Matt, I agree and echo your Heartset mindset. I often refer to training time as playtime." Yeah, exactly. I like the playtime as well. And that's the thing about the daily sets as well is playful. I think a lot of us would benefit more from a more playful approach to our workouts. I've been doing this with a lot of my clients lately, actually, where I'll give them a little bit more of a playful approach in their programming. For example, in one of the group classes that I'm teaching, I've got two gals who are very similar in fitness and they've got similar exercises. So instead of telling them, okay, you're going to do handstands for these number of sets and these number of reps and stuff, I'm like, all right, you got handstand practice for the next 6 minutes. Go. And they're like, what am I doing? Like, play with it. Try to balance, try not to use the wall, try to do push ups, try to shift your weight back and forth. Just, you've got 6 minutes of handstand practice. Go. Play with it. And because we often don't have this playful nature in our training, and it's so beneficial. Why? Because it's fun. Ultimately, this whole diet and exercise thing is supposed to be rewarding in and of its own sake. Yes, I know losing the weight, having the abs, building the muscle, all that stuff is great, good, wonderful. But it should be rewarding in and of itself. The meals you prepare should be satisfying now. The workouts you do should be fun and rewarding today. I'm a very big believer in the power of instant gratification. People are often talking about, oh, instant gratification is a bad thing. No, it's a very powerful thing. And if you don't know how to use it, then yes, it can be a bad thing. A lot of times in our fitness culture and life in general, we often label things as being bad, not because it's actually bad, it's because we don't know how to use it effectively. And when we don't know how to use it effectively, then we usually do have poor outcomes. But it's not because it's a bad thing, it's because it's a powerful thing and we don't know what we're doing. It's the same thing with a lot of foods and exercises. Oh, this exercise is bad for you. This exercise is unsafe. Oh, this type of food is bad. No, it's potent. That's why I always talk about sugar. Like, I love sugar. Sugar is amazing. Sugar is some of the best thing you can possibly consume. It is straight up rocket fuel. Coming from an endurance athlete, I'm a former bike racer and everything. You talk to a bike racer about sugar and they're like, dude, sugar is great. It's wonderful. It's like high test fuel for when you're on the bike. It is amazing. People are like, it's terrible. It's horrible. It's bad for your health and all. No, it's not. It's just powerful. It's very, very powerful and potent. And yes, if you don't know how to use it in a healthy way, you're probably going to get bad results. But that means you're the one who doesn't know what they're doing. If you know how to handle and consume sugar in a healthy way, it's wonderful and it's extremely healthy and beneficial for you. But you have to know how to consume it in a healthy way. And most of the dietary approach out there doesn't encourage that, which is why we still struggle with it. Let's see, other questions. I want to make sure I get everybody. Let's see, what other things did I want to make sure I addressed? Emotional. So yeah, the also the power, as we were talking about it a little bit more, getting in playful nature, is the power of adaptive training. Again, I've got my quick read that's going to be coming out in the next week or two on basically my little instruction manual on how to make adaptive training and eating work for you. It really is something that's been reinforced over the past several months, especially, is the more I learn about the principles and the applications of adaptive training, the more I'm looking at it going like, this is how most people are probably meant to be approaching diet and exercise. We're not supposed to be on this super strict structured routine all the time of like, okay, it's Saturday and I do these number of sets at this weight and this number of repetitions and everything. Yeah, it's good to have structure and guidance. You need that, absolutely. But having this adaptive approach where we adjust, modulate, and configure our approaches on a day to day and case by case basis is so much more beneficial in so many ways. It allows you to be so much healthier. And when you really look at life in general, most everything we do is done in an adaptive nature. When do you go to the bathroom? How long are you going to the bathroom for? When are you going to work? How long are you driving your car for? How long are you working on this project? Most everything we do in life has an adaptive nature to it. We're not doing it according to some sort of strict routine. We're doing it according to what the circumstances allow and warrant. And for some reason, we don't have that when it comes to diet and exercise. We think we need to follow a super strict routine that's done to the letter every single time. And that's fine. There's nothing terribly wrong with that, but it can be very limiting and it can be much harder and stressful on mind, body, and lifestyle. So I'm really a big fan of this adaptive approach. And I can't wait to share it to you because I've started adaptive training methods and workouts for my own workouts a few years ago. And I really do believe it was one of the best things I ever did for my results, for my mind, body, and lifestyle, to decrease stress. It's fantastic. So this past year has really been testing the waters of adaptive training. And the more I test it and the more I utilize it, the more beneficial it becomes. And the last lesson here, real quick, is that you don't need to be extreme when it comes to diet and exercise. You don't need to optimize things and stuff. And again, in life and stuff, like we don't do things all or nothing. Like I can make dinner. Now, I'm not going to culinary school. I don't have a $5,000 set of kitchen knives. I don't have things maximized and optimized when it comes to food and stuff. I have a relatively modest level of cooking skills, but that's perfectly fine because that's all I need to get out of it. And the same thing is diet and exercise. You don't need to be extreme. You don't need to be the best. You don't need to optimize things. Everything is adjustable to what level do you need to take this to. If you want to be extreme about it and try and maximize your potential about something, great. But you don't need that to get great benefits, to get a lot of value and reward out of your habits. You can have a basic push pull squat workout program. It's not maximized or optimized or anything, but it sure as hell can be a fantastic asset in your health, fitness, and your quality of life. So don't feel the pressure like you've got to take things to an extreme. I build up my core strength. My lower back pain is gone. Do you have shredded abs? No, I don't have any abs, actually. I still have a bit of a gut, but I don't care. But it got rid of the back pain because I do this single exercise a few times a week, and that's all I need. You don't need extreme in order to get what you want out of fitness. And it's much more important to recognize where that is because a lot of people, they're trying to make themselves turn into like athletes or high level athletes and stuff. And reality is most of us probably are going to be better off with just a very basic, simple push pull squat program, very basic approach to diet and exercise, like in my ultimate minimalist fitness program that I have over at the RDP PDF store. That's a program that's very simple. It doesn't take any special equipment, doesn't take any special skills. And I really, truly believe that most people, if they just did that, they'd get everything they wanted out of their health and fitness. And it doesn't take anything crazy. And we think sometimes it's got to be crazy in order to be effective. But nothing is effective unless it's repeatable. And oftentimes, the best, most repeatable actions are the things that are less crazy and less extreme, funny enough, ironically, as it is. So there's my big lessons. I'll be coming out with more and stuff like that, but there's a little bit of a wrap to, my 45th trip around the sun. Now I'm on to number 46, or actually I just did 46, so I'm 46 years old now and stuff, but more lessons to come out. I will keep you folks abreast on my set a day workout program, which has been going fantastic and great. Probably give you some more updates in the podcast next week. So make sure you subscribe, you like, you're listening. If you want to hear the audio transcript on these on your podcast directory of choice, I always post these a couple of days or within 48 hours after doing this live. So lots of good things coming, my friends. Lots of great things. I've got a lot more I'm learning, a lot more growth and development beyond just sets and reps. And I can't wait to share some of these lessons for you because it's making a hell of a difference in my mind, body, and lifestyle. And I sincerely hope the same is for you. So I'll let you folks go for now. I'll talk to you next week. Don't forget, check out the books and the bundles in the RDP PDF store down below. Helps to support the RDP channel. It's greatly appreciated. I'll talk to you folks next time. Till then, be fit, and live free.